Hello. Thank you everyone for joining this presentation. My name is Sam McManus, Managing Director of YellowWood Adventures. I just got back from 10 days in Malawi 2 days ago, hence the jacket. I'm now back in the UK where we're based. We're a British adventure travel company. And I just wanted to give you an overview of this fantastic country, which we've recently launched in. It was my first trip. I did a research trip for the business. And it was everything I hoped it would be and more. So Ethiopia is where I started the business. Malawi is based in Southeast Africa. You can see it's bordered by Tanzania, Mozambique, and Zambia. It's close to Zimbabwe. It has over 40 languages spoken. The national language is Chichewa. You can see I've just found a brief sort of tribal map here of it's too much information to go into of the ins and outs of the tribal nuances. But what's really interesting is, as I was chatting to some of our local guides, was there's evidence that the Batwa tribe originates especially from this region. The Batwa are the Pygmies. So a very short tribe indigenous to much of this region of Africa. They've now been, intermingled with other tribes. But the famous story goes when Dr. Livingstone came and the British explorer and discovered this area, and other explorers, is if you approached any of the Batwa tribe, who are obviously very short, and they said, "Where did you see us?" you had to say, "I saw you from afar." Because if you said, "I saw you close up," they would get quite angry and most likely put you on a stick and eat you. So let's move on to a better overview of the country. You can see it's dominated by Lake Malawi here. Lilongwe is the modern day capital. And I'll just let someone in here. And you can see the lake is really a huge feature of this tour. And although our itinerary finishes at the lake, I wanted to start with it because it was an absolutely fantastic experience. So Dr. David Livingstone, as I mentioned, a famous British explorer. He is known to have brought, as our guide explained to us, the 3 C's to what is called modern-day Malawi: colonialism, commerce, and Christianity. The lakeshore of Malawi was a real slave hub, I have to say, previous to that, from Swahili Arab traders. When the British came, it obviously became a British colony. But at least they abolished much of that slave trade, where including the local Africans would have brought out a lot of the natives from the region and marched them some of the key East African slave markets of Zanzibar, Kilwa, and Mombasa, and so on. In 1891, it became brought under the British Empire. It was colonialized, and it was called Nyasaland. So Nyasa actually means lake in the local language. There is a story that it was actually David Livingstone was using one of his interpreters to ask the local people what was the name of the lake. They misunderstood his question, and in Chichewa, the local language, they were just saying Nyasa. Nyasa is the lake. So he said, "Oh, fine, we'll just call it." He thought that was the name of the lake, and he wanted to call it, Nyasa Land. But anyway, it just meant Lakeland. And the capital city was established in Zomba in the mountains. We actually went up and visited Zomba. Really beautiful spot. This was the governor's or the minister of house, which has since been converted by a local business into a really nice coffee house and restaurant. And there's also got accommodations options as there. I know that when sort of the first colonials came, they'd settled around the lake shores of what is now called Lake Malawi. But it was a really bad malarial zone. Obviously, mosquitoes love water, and it's malaria's a mosquito-borne virus. And a lot of colonials and locals were dying from that disease. So the British moved their capital up into Zomba, and this is beautiful. Up here, there's a big plateau of about 2,000 meters on average of altitude. There's a beautiful waterfall, and it has a lovely feel to the place. Obviously, it's all locally run now, but you can still see a lot of the architectural heritage from those colonial times. It's got a really interesting feel to it. I mean, Nyasaland was essentially a sort of backwater of the empire, really. It was agricultural. They didn't have a huge amount of reserves of oil, diamonds, gold, rubber, or anything like that. So it was mainly, agriculture and ivory that it was best known for. So independence came to what is called modern-day Malawi in 1964. It was Hastings Banda who brought that about. He served as prime minister for 2 years, but then went on to rule for a very long time. He did fall into what would be known as a dictatorship, a very common story during African independence. I've actually been reading this book by Martin Meredith while I was there, and since I'm back, I would highly recommend this book to anyone who's interested in Africa. It's a history of 50 years of independence. It goes around all the different countries, starting with Ghana, what was then known as the Gold Coast, and it was Nkrumah who brought the first independence to an African colonized country. And then it goes around and looks at all of the different examples of these different leaders and just what happened to all of the countries. And it's just a fantastic way to understand A, the negatives of colonialism, but then B, the difficulty that Africa's had in standing on its own 2 feet. And it's just fascinating for anyone who's interested in the continent and anyone who likes history as well. So a really, really good read. I'd recommend that to anyone. Continuing on the theme of presidents, we had the great fortune to meet with Dr. Lazarus McCarthy Chakwera, who is the current president of Malawi. I was there doing research, and I timed it with a the biggest tourism expo that Malawi has of the year. This is literally week before last. We were there in Lilongwe for this event. You can see on the Prime Minister's right there, that's also the Minister of Tourism with the First Lady on his left. And you can see myself based on the right, looking extremely jet lagged. I just landed the day before. And it was just great. We met with our local partners as well and just got to find out a lot more about the country. It's always great to have firsthand knowledge, especially when we're expanding into we have great expertise in Africa, but expanding into a new country, nothing beats the boots on the ground and local connections and local knowledge that comes from firsthand experience. So what did I think of Malawi? They call it the warm heart of Africa. That's the slogan. I've been all over Africa, north, south, east, west. These are some of the friendliest people I've ever met across the continent ever. Absolutely very smiley, it felt very untouched. Here we were doing a tour in a tour bus with a mix of a few other tour operators and some clients as well. My fiance Emma came, so apologies because there's going to be lots of photos of including her. But stopping off, this was by chance outside a local school, and all the kids came out super friendly, no begging at all. What we found incredible is because Malawi, apart from the sort of hotspots of the cities where obviously you have modern industry, it remains an agricultural hub of Africa. People just didn't have mobile phones, and people were, not used to a high influx of tourism. There wasn't a lot of begging. People were interested to see you, extremely friendly. English is very widely spoken still. It's taught in all of the schools. So a lot of kids and grown-ups were able to come up to us, communicate in English. If they didn't speak English, they would speak through our local guides and translate. And it just has a real great feeling to it. This is real Africa. This is raw Africa, and it's an extremely friendly country. We loved it. Walking through one of the towns, we stumbled across the end of a funeral, and you can see local dancers here do this very strange dance. I've got some of these videos. They almost sound like demons, which was very entertaining to watch. We also just stumbled across a local market. Malawi's got beautiful textiles of all different colors and patterns. The women dress very in outlandish colors, very beautifully. They cost absolutely nothing to buy. It was extremely cheap. And that brings you to the lake, which is, as I said, makes up a huge part of the country. It's a major attraction. It's absolutely an unmissable highlight. So when we were there, it wasn't the best time normally, because it's sort of just after the rainy season, but also, like much of the world, Malawi's been experiencing huge amounts of rainfall recently. So the lake was actually 4 meters higher than it normally is, and that's, you know, the highest it's been for like a decade. So we saw it at an exceptional time. The water was very roughed up because of this high rainfall. Normally, June onwards, as I've been told, is, you know, the perfect time to go, because then the rains have stopped, the sediments settle, the water is glassy. It has, you know, one of the highest concentrates of fish diversity in the world, the cichlids in particular. So, you know, I didn't go at the best time, but it didn't matter anyway. We went over to this island to stay for a night, and obviously you catch a boat over, which is great fun. Typical smiling guy there. Excuse me. And then we got to Blue Zebra Lodge. This one's called Blue Zebra, is named after one of the cichlid fish there that you'll see a picture of in a second. So I've just given myself a little note here to mention bilharzia. So bilharzia is a parasitical disease that can be caught from water in Africa. So there is bilharzia in the Lake Malawi. It mainly is found at the edges where the water is still, and especially where reeds are. It's a parasite that lives in snails. You can catch it just by being in the water. It can come through your skin. If untreated, can cause lots of nasty things. That being said, around the islands, it's extremely rare that you will get this. We went into the lake, we went for a swim, it's fine. Because upon returning, you can buy a medication that's proven. It works. It's basically like a dewormer. You just take a few tablets. It's called praziquantel. 6 weeks after returning home. For myself and Emma, we bought 10 tablets, which we'll share between us. It cost £4. So I would recommend, if you're going to go swimming in the lake, you take that medication. Even though the risk is extremely low in and around the islands, why take a chance? Oh yeah, so here's some of the underwater photos of the cichlids. This is the where we were staying, and that had a whole range of different lodges of all different standards of accommodation, but ours was just lovely, nice standard, but rustic, you know, very private. You're completely in nature. You can see the lake is absolutely stunning. I took these photos just on my iPhone. You know, these colors aren't edited. It was just absolutely just a really, really relaxing place. You're in nature. There's a huge amount of bird life, local animals, and nothing, you know, we're moving on to the safari heavy duty stuff soon, but you know, here it's totally safe. Keep an eye out for snakes and stuff. You can see the huge amount of bird life here, beautiful colors on the lake. Communal dinners, really high standard of food as well, absolutely delicious. And our first encounter with the baobab trees. So baobab is extremely indigenous to and ubiquitous to Malawi. It's known as the upside down tree sometimes. It's a real source of sort of tribal heritage, and actually elephants love to eat them. So often, if within the national parks we would see them, that they'd put a lot of metal wire around them, just because the skin, they're so juicy, that the elephants love to eat them and can actually kill them. A lot of tribal elders and meetings will always be had below the baobab tree. It's so hard to capture their size. I think this video will hopefully capture it a bit better. Yeah, I mean, look at that. They're absolutely enormous. Some of them can live up to 1,000 to 6,000 years, apparently. That's actually me standing there. That was a fig tree as well. I mean, these are huge, you know, beautiful untouched spots. Some of the nature and the trees, you know, it's got a real feeling of antiquity, and it's great. Another on the YellowWood itinerary, which you can see on our website, we go to Mumbai Island as well, and stay at Mumbai Island Lodge. It's slightly more rustic than the Blue Zebra, but equally beautiful. You can do kayaking as well, and extremely popular for, you know, sunset cruises on the boats. We didn't stay long enough. We stayed for 2 nights. We should. You could have stayed for much longer on the lake. It's a really excellent place. Excuse me. So you'll see this symbol here, African parks. This is really important because the sort of story of Malawi at the moment, and we're going to come on to sort of looking at the national parks and the safari angle of this country, which is unmissable, has only really come about in the last few years, precipitated by the NGO African Parks, which is active all over Africa. So as I said, they're a non-government organization. They come into African national parks that have, you know, had wildlife depletion, lack of funds, a lot of, you know, if you go back to the pandemic, tourism funds a lot of these parks. And if you don't have tourism dollars coming in, how are you going to pay the park rangers? And if the park rangers don't have money to feed their families, a lot of them just had to leave their posts during the pandemic, go and get a job in the market, or go and do something else, which allowed poachers to come in and hungry families, and people in Africa will just kill animals to eat them. And so there was a huge amount of wildlife depletion, and that can also be, you know, mismanagement of government resources. I'm not saying that for Malawi, I'm saying that for any country in Africa. But what African Parks does is they come in and they get things going again. They will transfer up, they've got, you know, huge donors, so they will transfer up rhinos from South Africa. They will bring in lions from neighboring national parks in Zambia. And what they've done is they've got these we're looking at Luanda and Majeti in particular, but there's Nyaka National Park in the north as well. And cheetah populations, and they've really brought back Malawi safari national parks to internationally renowned standards. But what the amazing thing is now is that, you know, the cost of tourism hasn't caught up to that yet. People don't know about it yet. So Malawi's becoming a very or has become a very affordable, you know, world-class safari destination, and not a lot of people know about it. So, you know, hence why YellowWood is jumping in with 2 feet, because this is an absolutely, you know, fantastic opportunity for our clients. So Luanda National Park, it's as you saw, it's in southern Malawi. It's on the Shire banks. It includes the Shire River, which goes through it. We stayed at Umvu Lodge on this occasion. The lodge is on the riverbanks, which is absolutely stuffed with hippo and crocodile and loads of bird life. We saw fish eagles and you know, ground hornbill, very rare endemic birds. You can look at this photo here. I mean, it's absolutely pristine nature. It's absolutely beautiful. You're living in the midst of this, in really nice accommodations. rustic but high level at the same time. It's just, you know, just right, not too luxury, not too costly, good food, professional staff. They work, you know, hand in hand with African parks. There are other places you can stay as well, close to the river. I mean, we were sleeping in our sort of lodge, and we literally had hippos grazing on the grass 1 meter outside. Hippos, for the record, are the biggest killer in Africa. So, you know, you're forbidden to walk around at night by yourself. You always needed to be accompanied by a guide if you were going back to your lodge. Lions, there's large, 3 big lion prides in this national park alone. They would often come and hang around the camp. So there was a special alarm that would blast 3 times if lions were close to the camp. And then we were even issued with a little drum in our room that if anything went wrong, we could drum for help, which we all found quite amusing. The great thing is you're being right on the river. You can do boat safaris as well. And this was really good. Really fun way to also see the wildlife. And yeah, you can see here, you can see elephants from the river as well. And this was a great shot as well. You can actually see hippos in the water. Normally their heads just come out, but we were lucky enough to have a sighting of them on land as well. They spend most of the day in the water to hide from the heat. But this was an early morning game drive. We got up at 4:45. We were out on the road by 5:30, and we just saw the hippos in the early morning coming back from grazing during the night to come back and then sort of sleep it off during the daytime. The picture here on the right, the lodge put out a really lovely bush breakfast for us after our morning game drive. Yeah, and rangers from African parks were always there, not on the game drives, but if we did walking safaris, which we did, or if we were here, they were there issued with 4.58 caliber rifles, just to you know, high level of protection and very professional security, just to keep everyone safe, because you know you're in the middle of the bush with wild animals. These photos I actually took on my iPhone. I'm not a very good photographer, as you can tell, but we figured out that if we could use the binoculars of our Ranger and use our iPhone, and if you could just get it right, we had fun like snapping some long range shots of Hirapumba and a lioness here. You can see some of the lions are collared as well by African parks, so they can actually monitor the lion prides and keep an eye on them. And then here, this is this again, just on the iPhone, you can see getting right up close to the lions. There was a big male just tucked behind this bush here, which I managed to sneak a shot of later. So this was quite a fun little adventure. During the day, we came a bit stuck with our Land Rover here because of the high waters. The sand had got moved around. We jacked it up and tried to move it out, but we didn't realize the back axle was actually broken. So we got stuck in this riverbed here. You can see this was there were other people here with us as well. I didn't manage to get photos of them, but our Ranger, you know, they've got mobile phones, they've got walkie-talkies. He walkie-talkie for help, and another vehicle was brought to get us back. When that happened, it was just getting dark. It got dark about half an hour after that happened. So we had to wait. So the Range Rover came and got us at night. And then we were driving back, and there were lots of impala, which I haven't really taken photos of. And it was rutting season. So it's quite interesting because the males sort of get like 4 times the amount of testosterone they would normally have. And so like deer in the UK, they all go off separately and do their sort of ratting, grunting noises, and then they'll fight, obviously, for supremacy to be top dog and have access to the female. So we were driving back at night and we saw these two impala literally banging heads in the road. So we stopped to look at them. We had a flashlight and we turned off the engine, and then we heard these lions roaring. So we raced over at night for an impromptu night safari, and then pulled up and then had a sighting of these lions coming right up past our vehicle at night, as you can see here. So they were that close. And then if you look at this video here, which I'll include with sound, the male was roaring. The video doesn't capture it. But the noise, I mean, we were literally meters away, was absolutely deafening. It was like being hit by a shockwave. Lions can throw their voices. They can be heard 5 to 10 miles away. We had to drive back about 3 or 4 miles to camp. Everyone had heard it that far away, as if the lions were 2 meters from them as well. It's so hard to capture this stuff on photo and video, but it's such a thrilling experience, as anyone will know who's done safaris. Oh, sorry. Yeah, and so we got some great snaps as well. Yeah, so we then did a walking safari as well. This was a great local guide called David, really great storyteller. He would teach us all about the spoor on the ground. We could track rhino, and you could tell, he would show us, where there were elephant tracks, and you can actually, if you look at the front foot of the elephant with the back foot and measure it, you can tell its shoulder height. He was telling us what the antelope were doing and the rutting season, and how they all put their dung in the same place. It's like bushwire radio, so they can tell which females are there. They have a special gland in the roof of their mouth that when they lick their dung and then they put it up into the air, they can tell if a female's fertile or not. I think this one here is with a porcupine spike. Quill.
Porcupine field is also part of the hair. So the porcupine hair is modified quills for protection. That's why.
Really, really, really interesting. So yeah, apologies, I'm running over time a little bit. Let's move on to Majete National Park. We popped down there as well. We didn't spend quite as long, but I just wanted to scope it out. It was, I mean, I heard people saying, oh, they were comparing Majete with Luande. They're both fantastic. We stayed at Thwale Camp. Again, has that, perfect level of rustic. It's not super luxury, but it's got everything you need. You really feel like you're right in the middle of the bush. Again, there's much more Majete. There's more watering holes. I found closer to the camp, so the animals were closer to the camps. The only thing, the only significant difference between the two is that Majete has giraffe, whereas Luande doesn't, because Majete has more acacia trees, which the giraffe favor. Again, I'll go into less detail, not because it's a lesser park, just because we happen to spend more time in Luande and I've had more material for this. But we cover both of those national parks on our YellowWood tour. Obviously, we can do bespoke adventures as well, but they're both fantastic. And I'd just be basically repeating myself. So yeah, you can see, so Luande is national park here, Majete right down south, and just also down south is Mount Malanje, which is absolutely stunning region. It's the highest mountain in Malawi and the region. It's actually known as an Inselberg, which is an island mountain. It's a high plateau of a number of different peaks. There are 11 huts that you can do. It's surrounded by tea plantations. So it's a very, very beautiful area. We went to the tea plantation, but I'm actually thinking for our clients who like to hike. So, you know, if we take Uganda, for example, we run tours to Burundi impenetrable forest to see the gorilla, the silverback gorillas. But then we also do a similar tour where we do hiking in the Rwenzori Mountains of Uganda. So, you know, the current trip we have at the moment is focused on the national parks, the lake. But I think I might do a separate itinerary where you can involve hiking as well in Mount Malanje, and then do some of the safaris in the lake as well. Basically for clients who like to hike, or we could arrange this for you on a private basis. I'm definitely going back to Malawi. I can't wait to hike up into these mountains and explore the country more. Didn't get a chance to go up to the north. I know there's a lot of, you know, high plateaus in the north of the country as well. A lot of the coffee estates and tea estates are up there as well. Beautiful spot here. There's, you know, we drank loads of the local tea, the local coffee. Again, extremely friendly people. We stay at Huntington House, which is an old colonial establishment, now back in local hands for several generations, that they've now opened to tourism, which is great. Again, really lovely standard of rooms, beautiful views. And what's great is YellowWood Adventures, we do obviously support African parks just by being in those parks. Money goes through the lodges and into to help the NGO, and obviously pay the salaries of the rangers and the park wardens that work there. But our partner charity We Forest also has lots of projects in Malawi. You know, we plant 15 trees for every client who takes an international flight with us. And you can see they've been very active in Malawi with just under 100,000 trees planted in this region. They're a fantastic charity. I'd highly recommend them. So you can see here the Malawi tour that we have at the moment. It's for 10 days. It's on sale now. We've got 2024, 2025 prices up. As I said, we're looking at a secondary itinerary as well that could be hiking focused. But this is a shop window if you're interested in Malawi, and we could create a private tour for you as well. So I'm slightly over time now. I just wanted to give you, you know, a brief insight to this fantastic country. It's my first time there. I'm just buzzing from the experience. It's everything I love about Africa. It doesn't have the trappings of over tourism, or that sort of, you feel like you're just on the treadmill of just another paying customer, like you can feel in the Masai Mara or some other, you know, heavily touristed parts of Africa. It's everything I'd hoped it had be. We're very excited to take you there. I haven't seen any questions come through, but you'll all receive a recording of this. If you have any queries, please do get in touch with us. We'd love to hear from you. So thank you so much for your time. I hope you enjoyed this presentation, and speak again soon. Thank you.